You're listening to the Based on History podcast.
All units, Irene. I say again, Irene.
And we're going to kick him in the ass. We're going to kick the hell out of him all the time. And we're going to go through him like crap through a goose.
You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me! That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom! Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Howdy everyone, welcome back to the Based on History podcast, and today we're going to be doing a weapons, armor, and tactics episode on the movie Black Hawk Down. Now, the reason we're just going straight to Black Hawk Down and we're not covering Gangs of New York is that there's not really any weapons, armor, and tactics in the Gangs of New York episode. They have political tactics, and yes, they use weapons, and in the movie you see weapons, and they knives and swords and axes and broken glass and sharpened teeth, and they do line up and charge each other in one, a couple scenes and things like that. But it's not that kind of movie. It's not a military movie. It's more of a political dynamic, social dynamic, cultural, experiment of a historic movie. And so, I love doing the episode. It was a lot of fun. There's just not a whole lot of, weapons, armor, and tactics associated with it. So it's not really worth doing a whole 30, 45 minute long episode just on the weapons that may or may not have been used historically by the Irish and white Protestant street gangs in 19th century New York City. So we're going to skip that one and move on to Black Hawk Down. So we'll just get right into it, and we'll start with the American weapons, armor, and tactics, and then we'll move into the Somalians. So the main weapon that you're going to see the Rangers using in the movie and historically is the M16, and they would have been using the M16A2. They've got up to the M16A4 now, and that's generally being phased out completely. You will see it. I know the Marines use it for a lot longer than the Army did, and then you see the M16A4 in the reserves and National Guard and things like that. But in this time, where they were using the M16A2. And the two types of M16 that you're going to see in the movie are just the regular M16, which is what Josh Hartnett's character uses. And that was the main battle rifle for the U.S. military at this time. And then you're also going to see the M16 with the grenade launcher on it, the M203, which is a 40 millimeter grenade launcher attached to an M16. And Ewan McGregor's character, it would be the easiest way to find the M16 with the grenade launcher on it. Fires a 5.56 NATO round, and this was first introduced as M16A1 in Vietnam with that kind of triangular grip. And by now they kind of have a more circular grip, a hardier buttstock, some better components, but it's essentially the same rifle. And throughout its use, and I would say mainly due to Vietnam, the M16 itself has kind of gotten a little bit of a bad reputation as an unreliable weapon. It jams a lot, and in Vietnam it did. But the M16A2 and the other variations after that, pretty reliable weapon, all things considered, if it's maintained. That's kind of always the kind of critique you have to give the AR-15 variants, is that you need to maintain them, because they will jam up if they get too dirty and gritty. Now, when I was in the military, we used the M4 as the main battle rifle, and to be completely honest, I never had any problems with my M4 jamming up, and I didn't really clean it as much as the Army would like, or that you're told to, and things like that. I never had any problems. I never had any jamming problems with my M4. I'm sure there's some people out here who could tell you the exact opposite. They clean it all the time, or they didn't clean it all, and regardless of what they did, it jammed, every third round. I don't know, but for me personally, I never had any type of those types of problems. The main machine gun that you're going to see really the two types. You're going to see the M60, and you're going to see the saw gun, the squad automatic weapon. And Tom Hardy carries the saw, and then his partner Nelson with him in the movie carries the M60. And this is kind of a cool point in U.S. military history, and you see it illustrated in this movie. Really, it's really well done. It's a transition period in the U.S. military. And so you're going to see a whole bunch of different things, from the mixed match of the uniforms to the mixed match of the weapons, because at this time period, they're starting to come out with newer weapons, but they just haven't made enough to field the entire force with it. And that's why you see people using the old school M60 and the newer saw on a squad level, just intermixed throughout the chalks and things like that. The M60 fires the 7.62, and the saw fires the 5.56. Now, the saw is a super fast firing weapon. I can't remember the firing rate, but it can put a lot of bullets downrange really, really fast. And the M60 it's a heavier gun, so it's putting downrange a bigger bullet, but it's just a massive, massive, heavy weapon, and it doesn't fire quite as quickly. And so, one, that does two things. One, you're not putting as many bullets downrange, and two, you're not carrying as many bullets total on your body, or cross-loaded across the squad or chalk or whatever the team dynamic is. But it's cool to see both of them used in the movie, and you see that they've got the different types of carrying canisters for the weapon system itself. You hear, and the sound department did a great job, because you hear the difference. You hear the difference in the weapons when they fire. The M60 is kind of more of like a chug, chug, and then like the saw's almost more like a buzzsaw action going off. The next two rifles we're going to talk about you mainly see with the Delta operators, and that's the CAR-15 and the M14. And we'll talk about the CAR-15 first. The CAR-15 is kind of the predecessor of the M4. It's the carbine version of the M16, and it came out during Vietnam for kind of special operations and commando raids and things like that. And it's just a smaller version of the M16, but the way it operates is exactly the same. It's a gas operated semi-automatic or fully automatic rifle, and sometimes you see it suppressed, and sometimes you don't see it suppressed. Gary Gordon uses the suppressed CAR-15 as a sniper rifle. Technically, it's not a sniper rifle, but if you're a sniper, if you're a sniper and you have a rifle, therefore it is now a sniper rifle. But he's got the CCO on it, so it's just his weapon of choice to be able to have more rounds than a traditional bolt-action sniper rifle, or even the M14, which has a smaller capacity for rounds. The CAR-15 and subsequently the M4, like a lot of new military equipment, it's issued to the special operations units first, because they don't need as many, because they're a smaller unit to begin with, and they do trials and things like that. And so you see the newer weapons being used by the special operations, and in this movie it's the Delta Force operators. And then later on, as they make more and things like that, they issue them to the Rangers, and then the 10th Mountain, or the 101st, or whoever, and then it's widely spread throughout the military. So it's great to see that really right now at this time period, you're really only seeing the Delta operators carry the CAR-15 and the CAR-15 variants and how they kind of mock them up and stuff like that. The other rifle, the M14, which is carried by Randy Shigart, is such a cool weapon, but it's kind of a lost rifle in the U.S. arsenal of military history. It came out kind of in between Korea and Vietnam, so it was the main issued battle rifle of the U.S. Army, but it had a wooden stock. And so when they got to Vietnam, they saw that wood swelled so much in the humidity and the moisture and the rain of the jungle that it became not ineffective, but very, very hard to maintain. So then they came out with the M16 and the plastic and synthetic stock. But the M14 had a kind of revitalization period as a sniper system in Vietnam and then later on in date. And even to today, there is a variant of the M14 that is used as a designated marksman weapon in the Army. And it fires a 7.62, so it's putting down a bigger bullet than the M16 or the CAR 15. And therefore, instead of 30 rounds like the M16 carries, it carries a 20-round magazine. But when you listen, going back again to the sound department, when the two snipers, Gary Gordon and Rain Chagart, are going to help Michael Durant in his down chopper, you can hear the difference in them. They've got some sound that is a deeper bullet sound firing on the M14. And it's just really cool to see them rocking the M14. I always loved it. I've only used it in training scenarios, but it's just such a cool weapon. And it's cool to see that a rifle that kind of got pushed aside got to have a new life in the sniper community. And as a sniper, I always kind of gravitated to this weapon. I always thought it was cool. Never used it. Never, in deployment or carried it as my sniper rifle or anything like that. I've just always really liked the M14 and just thought it was super cool. So now we'll move on to the armor that the U.S. is carrying and wearing. Now the main armor that they're carrying is their helmets and then their chest rigs. So their helmets is going to be the K-Pot. Its design is based on the German helmet of World War II. And when you really look at the U.S. helmets, especially the K-Pot, it looks almost exactly like the German Wehrmacht helmets, except that it's not made out of metal. It's made out of Kevlar, and that's what the K stands for, Kevlar. And then pot is just soldier slang for the helmet. And I wouldn't say that they don't stop bullets. They can redirect bullets in certain scenarios, and they're really for shrapnel and things exploding, keeping the shock and getting knocked down, and that kind of helmet. If you shot it point blank, the bullet's going through the helmet. The next thing that you're going to see the U.S. forces wearing is the body armor that they're wearing, and right now they're wearing, it's steel armor plates, and you see it in the movie with that guy who's taking it out, talking about he doesn't want the extra weight on him when he's going out, he's not getting shot in the back, running away, kind of a thing. And it's just a plate carrier, so they're wearing the plate carriers, and then they're putting their webbing and their kits over the top of it. It's going to weigh roughly 20 pounds. So there is some truth to not wanting that extra weight. And in the book, they talk about some soldiers, when they would go out on raids, would take out their back plate. Now, that character specifically, I don't remember in the book if they actually talked about him and getting shot in the back and talking about that kind of a thing. I know it happened, and that's probably why they put it in the movie, to illustrate that some guys weren't wearing their plates. I'm just talking about that character specifically. The Delta operators are essentially wearing the same thing, but theirs are just in black. And then that's really all the armor that they're wearing. And this is kind of the first time period where you're seeing armor coming back into fashion. Yes, they had Kevlar vests and things like that in Vietnam. They didn't work super, super great against armor piercing, bullets and things like that, but they did shrapnel and stuff like that. These are the first real kind of body armor that could stop a bullet and save your life. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, because you think about body armor as kind of medieval or ancient and classical times and things like that. And then when firearms come into play, the armor goes away because it's not needed. And why carry the extra weight around you if it doesn't actually do anything? And then we kind of come back full circle, and it's like, oh, now we've got better metal, and this type can actually stop it, and reinforced with Kevlar, combined with the plate, we can stop bullets. And so now you're starting to see the reintroduction of body armor onto the modern battlefield. And this is a time where it's really starting to come into the individual soldiers, kit. And then later on, and when I was in the military, you had all sorts of body armor, from neck protectors. They had shoulder pad Kevlar things. They've had stuff to protect your groin, and but then they also expect you to carry all of the other components to be able to fight, from bullets to grenades to smoke grenades to radios to, all this stuff, and then plus stuff in your backpack. So it really did become a weight game. And how much of this do I really need? How much risk am I willing to accept to not go down from overheating of weight and just being able to function as I need to be without so much weight, but with enough to where I am protected. And so each individual soldier kind of goes through that, and what they can carry and what they like and what they don't like, and stuff like that. But it's cool to see it in the movie, of this kind of reintroduction of modern body armor on the battlefield. Now we'll talk about the U.S. tactics that they used during this time period, or for this task force and the operations that they were running. And they're mainly running raids. They're not trying to conquer Somalia. All right, so this isn't a game of territory, at least not yet and during this time period. They are trying to remove Muhammad Farah Aidid from power. So what they are trying to do is they're trying to capture him, but they're trying to reduce his capabilities to operate in his controlled territory. And so they're not going out and sweeping the city block by block. Not only is that not the goal, they don't have the manpower to do that. And so what they're really focusing on is raids. And they do this with great efficiency time and time again. And what the U.S. forces are going to do, they've got the helicopters for air cover, they've got the Humvees for transport, and they are going to roll up as fast as possible with as much firepower as they can, shock and all, and then grab who they need to, load them up, and then get out of there as quickly as possible. And the special operations community this is one of their bread and butter. They are great at it. The Rangers are amazing at it. The Delta are obviously great at it. In the movie, you don't see them, but in the book and in real life, there were some Navy SEALs there as well. This is, especially going forward into the war on terror, this is their bread and butter, and quick lightning raids is one of the things they do best. So when we go to the Somalians' tactics, it's going to be things to mitigate that speed and initial shock and awe firepower. And we'll talk a little bit about Aidid and first before we talk directly about their tactics, which we did talk about in the main episode. But Aidid you don't get the sense of this in the movie because they never actually show him. All they show is the militia, and it's kind of ragtag, third world, and you don't really get the sense of actually how prepared they really were. Aidid was not just some random warlord who popped up out of the deserts of Somalia and got some guys together and started raiding and took over parts of Somalia. He was a well-educated man. He started out in the Somalian army and then was sent. This is when Somalia was controlled by the Italians. He was sent to infantry school in Rome, which is a prestigious Italian military school. He came back. He was a lieutenant, worked his way up through the ranks. And then he was sent to a very prestigious Soviet school in Russia to learn military science at a highly regarded Soviet military school. So he is well educated in the ways of war from the infantry level, which would be, you could say, is like the kind of individual soldier level and the small unit tactics, all the way up to the broad military science, tactics of a army. And he comes back and he is working his way up the ranks. He's appointed the ambassador to India for a time within the government. So this man is well-traveled, well-learned. He is not just some random warlord. He wrote 3 books while he was an ambassador to India. He reached the rank of brigadier general in the Somalian army. So this man is not just some random guy. He is well-trained. He is, like I said, he's smart. And when the U.S. forces come in to try and capture him, he is not just unprepared or, kind of reactionary to what the U.S. is doing. He is planning. He is actively trying to come up with a way to defend his territory and overcome what the U.S. forces do well. And what we talked about is what they did is raids. So shock and awe, massive amounts of firepower, quick lightning raids, get in and then get out. So what they are going to do, and they know that the U.S., one of the main things that gives the U.S. forces this capability are the helicopters. It gives them the speed, and it gives them the air cover to operate safely when they're on the ground. So the main tactic of what Adid's militia is trying to do is shoot down a helicopter. And in the battle, they finally do that. They shoot down 2. They almost shoot down 4. That would have been a completely different type of battle if they actually shot down 4. But they have lookouts all along the route of entry from the airport where Task Force Ranger is stationed. They alert everybody so they know they're coming, so they're not caught unawares. And then the whole goal is to wait until they are able to shoot down a helicopter, and then they block off as many of the roads around the helicopter as they can so that the convoys can't get in, and then bring in massive amounts of militia to overwhelm the small units of the special operators that are trying to defend that helicopter or in the area that they're fighting. And they do, from a Somalian perspective, they do a really good job of this, but they're just not able to, the individual soldiers of the Somalians are not as well trained as the U.S. soldiers, and obviously. And so even though they do a lot of what they were trying to accomplish, a lot of their goals that they're trying to accomplish within this scope of the battle, the individual soldiers are what really prevails for the U.S. So some people say it's a Somalian victory. Some people say it's a U.S. victory. I really view it as a U.S. victory for 2 reasons. One, the goal of the raid was accomplished. They got the prisoners that they were trying to get. And then 2, the U.S. force was not overwhelmed and destroyed. Yes, they retreated out of that area of Mogadishu, but that was never their goal, was to conquer the Bakara market or that area that they were operating in. It was just a raid. And anyone who's been in the military knows, whether it's in training or in real life, once the operation starts, something's going to go wrong. And so then you have to be able to adapt to that and overcome that fog of war to accomplish the mission. And the U.S. force does that. Not only do they get the prisoners that they want, but one helicopter goes down, they reassess, and then they boom, okay, now this is the mission. We're going to do this. And then another helicopter goes down, and like, all right, now we have to try and do this. And some of it works better than others, obviously. But the U.S. forces are able to defend that first helicopter and then rescue those who are alive and get the bodies out of those that are dead, get them back onto armored vehicles, and then get them out of the fighting and into the safe zone. So there's a lot of things that went well for the Somalians, but really from a battle standpoint, it's a U.S. military victory. Now you can kind of see the fallout from the U.S. public and the world public at large afterwards from, why are our soldiers dying in this random country in the Horn of Africa, and why are we even there, and you're seeing your soldiers dragged through the streets naked and things like that. So that has some fallout effect that would be more pro-Somalian because the U.S. forces are eventually going to leave. But from just a battle standpoint, I would consider it a U.S. victory. I mean, not all victories are... You don't just get a victory by anyone dying, right? So just the fact that the U.S. did lose some troops and many, many men were wounded doesn't mean that it was a defeat. That being said, you have to give credit to the Somalians for what they were able to do. And the movie doesn't really do them justice in that sense of how well prepared they were and how hard they fought and what they were able to achieve against a much technologically advanced force and a much better trained force. So that's like kind of the one thing I wish would have been in the movie, is kind of showing that, like, hey, it shows that it's a hard fight, but really it's kind of, the ant swarming tactics. It's hard because there's so many of them and there's not very many U.S. forces. It's a much better, accomplishment from the U.S. forces that are there when you really realize that Adid had battle plans. This is what he was trying to accomplish. It didn't just kind of happenstance, so to speak. So I give a lot more credit to the Rangers and Delta Force and the SEALs that were in that fighting when you really realize, hey, they were fighting a much more disciplined force than what the movie portrays. So that is really going to kind of do it for the weapons, armor, and tactics of Black Hawk Down. And we have we're starting work on the next episode, which we're going to do the 13 Hours, Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Love the movie. It's got some things that I got some little faults that I have in it, but I really, really enjoy the movie. I think it's great, and so I'm hard at work on that. Hopefully in the next couple weeks that will be released, and I hope that y'all enjoy it. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Check us out on any platform you listen to, and tell every single person that you've ever come into contact with about the podcast. Keep expanding. So until next time, adios.